master's degree. My goal is to be a trauma therapist. Not specific to women, but for some reason that's kind of my audience right now. That's my clientele base is mostly women. Um, I work currently in a mental health facility contracted through my company, and I run a all-female trauma group with co-occurring addiction. So I'm in that kind of trauma space with addictions, and it's a beautiful space. I love it. I just had a really amazing conversation with some other group facilitators today, and myself and only one other are actually in the mental health field studying it. And they were just like, "How can you do this every day?" And I said, "Look, I'm a survivor myself, so I think that's why a lot of people are comfortable with me because I've done all of that healing. And so even my space of where my outlook, the way that I work with a survivor is different. It's more intuitive on some level, like um, just with the sense of I see things that other people may not had they not survived it. Um, Life coaching versus counseling, it's very different. Life coaching should not really be touching trauma because they don't have the full tools of it. And I think people get confused when somebody says I'm trauma informed. And I just say, well, so's your dentist. That just means people have experienced trauma, but it doesn't mean you're going to talk your crap out with your dentist. So, life coaching is very much more about like personal development, future outcomes. You can build some skills and do those things. It's kind of like a mentor supportive space. And therapy is a little different in the sense that it can diagnose. It does therapeutic techniques. Legally, life coaches shouldn't be doing therapeutic interventions, but some of them are just life skills. So it's a funky little space. I just always say use caution with life coaching because it's not legally regulated. It's not, at least here in the States, it's not. People can charge you whatever they want. They can say whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. They don't have the same legal ethical boundaries as a therapist. So in my coaching realm, I pretty much follow the same ethical legal standards. Really hold the boundaries, the same space. But I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram. Those are really the two spaces that I function out of, and it's anchored with Brit. My business is Anchored Consulting and Coaching. So I have a website people can schedule on. I do free meet and greets, because to be fair, I'm not for everybody, and nor do I want to be, because I feel like if I am, then I'm not in my own authentic self. And then everyone's not for me. I mean, I really, because I have the mental health background, I'm like, this is far beyond what you should be doing, what I can be doing with you legally right now. Let's find you a good therapist. And then I can work with them. I do work with a lot of people that have a therapist and with me because we do a lot of like the trauma dumping because they're like, hey, I don't want to put this on my husband. So I need a safe space to talk so my husband doesn't have to bear the brunt or, things like that. So it's just this kind of beautiful world that I get to function in. I mean, I even work with teens, social media, healthy social media, body positivity, you're not your body, like self-esteem workshops, things like that. So I love to teach. I love to educate. So I'm probably going to go on to my PhD to be an educator. So I'm excited for that. I'm trying to find those programs, and my guy's like, are you ever going to be done with school? I'm like, I don't know. So that's a little bit about me on the professional side anyway.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned that there is a difference between therapists and coaches and mentors, and I 100% agree. I think coaches are more, as you put it, right, the development side. Why do you think so many people get maybe caught up in trying to do everything when maybe there is actually levels to it, as you described?
My first answer I want to say is that I think genuinely people want to help. I also think that with social media, there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I know how to speak to your wound. And so they get these massive followings, but they're not actually offering healing or education, or they know how to hit just the topic hot spots. Um, and then they go with it. And I'm not a showy person. Like I don't pimp out my business on TikTok or Instagram. I post educational stuff. People find me if they want it. But I think life coaching has become um, an easy income. And I think there's a lot of, in my experience, like anytime I come across a life coach, I'm like, let me see your website. Let me see your credentials. Let me see these things. And most of them don't even have a valid website. And I came across one terrain that charges $5,000 for the first visit, and he requires you to sit there for 4 to 6 hours. And his name, which I will not say, but it's a word, and then the following word is counseling. So he's very misleading in the fact that people think he's a counselor, and he used to be a pastor. And I was going through page after page after page trying to find his credentials, and at the very little tiny disclaimer, he's like, I'm not a mental health therapist. Yeah, you're right, because a psychiatrist, somebody with a PhD, over the course of 4 to 6 hours isn't going to cost you $6,000. So life coaching has become an insanely wild way to make a vicious income, and it's at the expense of other people. And I think that that's a place to throw caution, because again, there's no ethical or legal requirements in that field. And TikTok makes you go real viral real fast. And so I always caution people, you need to do your homework before you pay a life coach. And there are some really amazing life coaches out there. So I don't want to sound like I'm clowning the whole field, but for the most part, I think that there's like a 2% validity factor there of really, really strong, educated, well-boundaried coaches that are out there. I just think it became like the new it thing, especially after COVID.
I think so as well. I think some of the difficulty is, especially on social media, you have like the sofa therapists, the sofa coaches, the sofa mentors, where some people are literally doing it from their underwear, right? In their bedroom.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
when you put people in a position, right, to go viral so quickly, I remember there's a time, and I think maybe you and I talked about this, maybe like offline a little bit, where it seemed like there's a point in time, maybe last year, a year and a half ago, where every single person that was abused, it was because they were with a narcissist or
Oh
someone that
yeah.
was a narcissist, right? And I think you posted something along the lines. Do you guys know what it takes to qualify as a narcissist? Because there's actually things to qualify, and I'm guessing no one responded, right?
No. Because people like to throw that word around. I think the two most misused words as far as mental health pertained are narcissism and PTSD. Um, and narcissism has 9 diagnosable criteria in the DSM. Just because somebody cheats doesn't make them a narcissist. Just because they have an arrogant attitude doesn't make them a narcissist. And um, and everybody thinks that they know everything. And so that's fine, but what education, again, even if you're Joe Schmo with your TikTok, where are your facts, like where are your sources that you're coming up with this? And I think the other thing that kind of ties into it is everyone has become an expert because of their life experiences. And like in trauma focused healing, now, the group that I work in is not therapy because I'm not a licensed therapist yet, but it's a psychosocial rehabilitation group. So it's highly, highly educational. And just today, I was telling people, I said, trauma work is very cognitive. And so that's why there's so many like mental health therapies that come into it. And then PTSD came up and a lot of different things. But um, I think a lot of people identify with the wound of the person that they're listening to. Oh, I survived a narcissist. So now everyone's like, oh, that speaks to me. I think I was with a narcissist and this person knows everything because they make it sound really great. Somebody sharing their story does not mean that they are an expert on the topic. They are an expert on their life. They're an expert on their life experiences. So with trauma, so many people get married to their trauma and their identity now is attached to the trauma they've survived. And I just had this conversation, and literally, I think right now TikTok is uploading a video that I just created about this very topic because I said that's not where you win. You didn't win because you survived. That's a part of the winning process. And I never take that away because in my experience in my education, we are a victim, now we're a survivor, we do the healing, and now we're thriving. So your story isn't done until you can share about the healing. But so many people are afraid to do the trauma work because A, it's hard. B, it's very mentally exhausting because healing trauma, believe it or not, is very cognitive based. And most people are stuck to their emotions. They're attached to the emotion of the trauma. And because so many people, for various reasons, don't heal their trauma, that becomes their identity. And now it's, oh shit, who am I if this isn't my story anymore? And so it's very hard to let go of that identity of I'm a survivor. This is what happened to me. And I strongly, strongly once a day, or at least twice in my group daily, will say, you are not what happened to you. You're just not. It doesn't define you. So I think that that's something that people get very misinformed about. And then this is again why I'm going to attach to some person that looks like they're an expert, but they're an expert on their life. And then this is where people don't know because what people think is we're emotional beings. We're not. We're actually logical beings, but that has gone far, far, far to the wayside at this point.
I agree. I have a friend, and I think it's actually a mutual acquaintance. So I have to be careful how I'm going to word this. But
So,
right? I know, right? It's like, uh-oh. You know what's interesting with this person? I met this person because they were very open about their trauma, which is fine, right? Like you want to share, and if it's going to help you, it's going to help you. And I'm all for that, right? Because it's your life and things of that nature. As I got to know this person, one of the recommendations I gave to her, or one of the recommendations I asked her is, why do you run to social media to seek support? I'm going to use that word, right? The word I use was more validation and attention. I'm going to say support. And for her, it was because it's instant, right? Right? Likes, views,
mhm.
you get everything. So one question, and you made a good point, Britt, is I asked her, before you went through the situation you went through, who are you? And she couldn't remember who she was. I was like, you've become this trauma. And now, because you're getting attention, maybe because you're getting validation, you don't want to work through it because once you work through it, the people who are around you maybe won't be around you anymore.
Right.
Right?
And who am I? Who am I if this doesn't define me? And that's a really scary place, especially if we're an adult, because I know who I was before. I know who I am now. But if I let go of all of this and I don't have this story to tell, but the part they miss though, Train, is that it's still part of your story. But now your story is empowerment and healing. And when we heal out loud,